Hello and welcome to Sino-Insider. On September 10th, China and India reached a disengagement agreement on a military standoff at the disputed Himalaya border region. But rather than de-escalation, China's actions since then seem to signal otherwise. Indian officials have spotted Chinese troops laying fiber optic cables at the border. These cables would provide secure lines of wartime communications, suggesting preparation for protracted military action. Beijing's television programs also aired a segment on high-altitude military training exercises. Experts featured in the program hinted that Sino-Indian border tensions may continue into the winter. Let's recap the Sino-Indian situation. Currently, Beijing is faced with an onslaught of domestic and geopolitical woes, and manufacturing an external crisis to distract away from these woes is exactly what Beijing needs. So, until China's situation changes, Beijing will likely maintain or escalate tensions at the border. We believe that Beijing is unlikely to cease its border provocations until it gains a propaganda-worthy victory over India. Such a victory could be winning territory or defeating Indian troops. Of course, India will not just roll over in the face of Chinese pressure, so it is probable that the present conflict could spark a minor border war between the two nuclear-armed powers. It is tough to say which side has the advantage in a one-on-one if a minor armed conflict does happen. On paper, India has better quality troops and a proximity advantage in supplying its forces at the border, while China has an edge in technology and weaponry. And due to acclimatization constraints, both sides will experience similar challenges in reinforcing troops at the front. Armed conflict is also very costly, and neither side will favor a prolonged campaign at the border, especially during a time of global recession caused by the coronavirus. Things could go south quickly for India though, as other countries in the region with border claims are on friendlier terms with China. So if Pakistan and Nepal join China in armed provocations, India will be overstretched at the broad Himalaya border region. But if India and her allies leverage on their strengths and shift the conflict beyond the border, this could also backfire badly on China. Retired Admiral Arun Prakash, a former head of the Indian Navy, told the Wall Street Journal, "On the northern border, the best we can hope for is to achieve a stalemate. But at sea, we have an advantage over the Chinese." He also said, "A show of force at sea can send a message to China that you are vulnerable, and we can interfere with your shipping and with Chinese energy supplies. Their economy would be shaken up." Let's take a look at why things will look very bleak for Beijing if India and her allies cut off China's supplies through maritime action. China is heavily dependent on externally supplied oil and other materials. Over 80% of China's oil supply from the Middle East passes through the Strait of Malacca, which is a strategic choke point. Should there be war on the Himalayan border, India and her allies could hold up China's oil supply and imports by partially blocking off the strait. India has military command on the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and this, with her allies' strong presence in the southern end of the strait, allows them to control the strait. So while China may have the upper hand at the Himalaya border region, Beijing would face immense difficulties dealing with a partial maritime blockade. India is also part of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue Strategic Forum, also known as the Quad for short. India has conducted multiple joint naval exercises with Quad members this year, including the United States, Japan, and Australia. These include a small exercise in the Indian Ocean region of the Malacca Strait with Japan in June. Then in July, a drill again in the Indian Ocean of the USA, and in September, naval exercises in the Eastern Indian Ocean with Australia. Even though China has a warship numerical edge over individual members of the Quad alliance, this advantage is negated should the Quad pit their naval and technological assets against the PLA Navy. To cite one example, China has only 2 Soviet-era aircraft carriers in its armada, compared with the US, which has at least 3 aircraft carrier groups featuring nuclear-power aircraft carriers ready in Indo-Pacific waters. Let's not overlook the fact that India's navy is formidable in its own right. It is also battle-hardened. India was very successful in the 1971 Indo-Pakistani naval war, notably in an attack on Karachi where the Indian Navy devastated the Pakistani Navy following 2 large-scale operations. These successful operations, among others, damaged Pakistan's economy and gave India complete control over the oil route from the Persian Gulf to Pakistani ports at the time. In contrast, the People's Liberation Army Navy has no real combat experience. The last battle involving PLA naval assets was in October 1949, when it assaulted the island of Kinmen in the Taiwan Strait. The Battle of Kinmen was a complete fiasco for the PLA, with all 9,000 troops either killed or captured by Kuomintang forces. In sum, given the perfect storm of problems facing the Chinese Communist Party, Beijing is likely to further escalate the situation at the Sino-Indian border. Beijing's provocations could even result in minor border war. Such a conflict, however, could backfire on the Chinese Communist regime if India and her allies react by playing to their strengths in the maritime arena. Ultimately, the Chinese Communist Party's political legitimacy will take a hit regardless of how it responds to a crisis in the Indo-Pacific waters. And that is all for today's episode. For further analyses on the Sino-India border conflict, please visit Sinoinsider.com. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and share it with your friends. Thank you for watching.